Chet Hanx attributes years of alcohol and substance abuse to the fame of famous parents Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. Now, I do think that that's a little bit misleading.
It makes it sound like he's blaming them,
and
when
he is not.
In the video, which I'm surprised I hadn't seen before because it was like 4 months old on his YouTube channel, which I'm now subscribed to, by the way.
We are all subscribed, and to when I went to follow him on Instagram, it was so funny how many people that work here are now following him.
That's because you guys made us do this. Like, you guys have been like, you don't understand. Chet Hanks.
I was like, Carter? Why is Carter following?
Right?
But
he makes sure to stress the point that he's not blaming his parents, and he like still has a relationship with them, and they didn't know better.
And the craziest thing about it is he does more to take ownership of his actions and to not lay the blame at the feet of other people than just about anyone in Hollywood has done in the last 20 years. Yeah. And all you can think of when you're doing it, like when it took about 5 minutes of me watching it not to hear it in the Jamaican accent. And then after that, it's like, this guy is... first, before we do that, though, we can go and watch his video from yesterday. Or he has a new one today.
His new motivational clip.
He has a new motivational clip, so here we go.
Oh, my goodness.
Foods, if you want your workouts to stick, you can work out all you want. It's not going to make any bit of difference if you're not eating the right foods. Period. That's a fact. I worked out my whole fucking life. I never weighed more than $160 until I got my diet dialed in. That's a fact. So I got my diet dialed in. I worked out every fucking day. I was sober. I started journaling, praying, reading, meditating, praying to fucking God, asking him for everything, asking him for clarity. You need to eat the right foods.
So that's Chet.
He's on like a religious / nutritional kick now.
Well, he's got
general wellness, I guess.
He has a private training service called Hanx Fit.
Right. And so the idea here is he's doing like motivational, not motivational speaking, but what'd you call it? Like
hyping you up to work out.
Yeah, he's basically like a hype man. And I am aware that this is a man selling a product.
But he's damn good at it.
On one hand, he's either really, really good at it and selling me a product, and I'm like, okay.
Does he make you want to stay sober and get jacked?
He does.
Pray?
And pray.
Mother effer.
He somehow manages to include the F word right after
so
God
funny.
anytime he's talking about God, and it's my favorite thing. So right now, this is one of those things that started out as almost like a meme type joke when I was talking about Chet Hanks.
Yeah, and he doesn't mind playing that role, but he also is like a person with substance, it appears.
Yes.
I think it's funny because at first you guys were like, he is so out there and kooky, and now you're like, no, he had some good tips. I feel really motivated after listening to him.
We're gonna join the Chet Hanks cult.
I really think you have joined. This is like a Chet Hanks cult podcast at this point.
One thing he gets into is that when he was acting out, his parents sent him away to those nature retreat wellness things to get your kids in line. Mm-hmm. The things that Paris Hilton has basically been
the troubled teen industry subject.
And he said that that's exactly what happened here. But again, he takes ownership because, look, my parents didn't know that.
Which Paris said the same thing. They obviously advertise as something far different than what they actually are.
So they know, when just imagine being the guy owning this company, and you're like, this is Tom Hanks' son. I'm going to milk him you're not ready to go home yet because you're paid by the day there. So they're going to keep you there as long as they can possibly keep you there. So he says, he added, my consequences could have been a lot worse, and I was very lucky it didn't turn out that way. Later on in the video, I don't know if we can show the video, so I'm not going to. I don't know if we would
I don't think we would be able to.
I don't know if we would get a copyright claim. And the last thing I want to do is offend Chet Hanks.
The Chet
Hanks.
Role model.
So it says that he notes that he instantly realized that I'm in way over my head with this dude. He's talking about the camp counselor, the first guy that he was trying to pull one over on there. And there's just a lot of humility in the way he speaks about everything in this video. And
I'll say the troubled teen industry is real, and there are unlicensed schools that are very dangerous. But I have a cousin who is a certified wilderness therapist and specifically works with at-risk teens. Mm-hmm. And it can be really therapeutic to have teens in new environments, and especially when they're learning to rely on themselves and be challenged
and
physically.
Even adults too.
Yeah.
I watched this interview of Matty Healy from the 1975 where he was talking about his recovery from heroin addiction, and he reached sobriety in this horse ranch. Mm-hmm. They did therapy through relationships with horses.
Yeah.
I went to when I went to rehab. I didn't go through a standard 12-step program. I went through what's called health realization, which is very similar. Like you're out in the woods, and So
Really?
that's. I mean, it's not quite the same thing. There's still a lot of structure there, but it's there's a similar aspect to it here.
Yeah.
So he goes into and this is where I do think this article is a little bit misleading in the way they frame it, as if he blames his parents for it. He does not. He says that look, he's like fame is the most addictive drug that there is, and seeking validation through fame is even worse. He goes, but then there's something even worse than that, which is like you're not even famous. You're the son of a
You're
famous
standing
person.
like
Purely
just-
a derivative person.
Yeah, and you're standing like just outside this shadow of fame.
Even still, he is really only described in reference to his dad,
Yeah.
and that must be really hard to see.
And he talks about basically the idea that once people have a perceived notion of what you're like, it's impossible to break people from that notion of who they are. And that's kind of what I think he's trying to do with his business, while also making money and carving out his own niche in the world. And as somebody who is not a huge fan of Tom Hanks, he still loves his dad and mom. He says that in the interview, he goes, he said that his dad always made him work. That he wasn't like, he's like, if you want money to go out with your friends, wash my car, I'll give you $60. He says that.
Like, it wasn't the situation that a lot of people assumed it was.
And that's that. One of the things that he talks about is that he knows that he was privileged, right? And that he grew a lot of self-hatred for that. And that was what made me want to cover this, is that whatever they believe about the concept of privilege or not, I think that the term alone is damaging, because first of all, it creates resentment on both sides. His initial reaction was to lash out with bravado and to push back, because he's like, look, you're labeling me, and you're boxing me into this place where you think I belong, but you know nothing about me. And I think that is the natural outcome of all labeling people on where they exist in the progressive stack.
And it's not even a political thing, really, because this was like back in the 90s.
Yeah. I'm extrapolating to what this means for the rest of culture.
Right.
Like, if this happens to him, that's one thing to have this happen to a celebrity with rich and famous parents, but when you're doing it to your everyday neighbor just because they look differently than you, the natural outcome is that person's going to have an even bigger chip on their shoulder than the son of the famous person, because they're like, look, I worked for everything I have. So it's like, I think you see an oddly weird relationship between what's going on in our culture today and the evolution of Chet Hanx.
That is what they're doing to Chet Hanx now, because we saw in his interview with Z-Way, she was like trying to get him to apologize to every group he could have possibly offended, and he was like, no, I'm not playing that game.
Kick rocks.
Kick rocks, literally.
Bringing back that phrase right back from like 2016. So the other
this
thing,
Brett's cultural icon.
he slowly becoming so. And then the other thing that, like, the reason why this guy, I identify with this guy so much, is after he finishes the first video, not the one about the wilderness, but the other one, is he finishes the video and then he adds more at the end, but he doesn't reshoot it. He's like, look, if I'm going to be as vulnerable as possible and as real as possible, I can't reshoot this because it won't come off as authentic. And that's exactly something I would have done. I would have never wanted to like reshoot it, because the moment you say the same words again, they do not carry the same resonance or the
Feel
same
very
notion.
rehearsed and unnatural.
Yeah, so all he's really doing is editing. Like, he edits around like coughs and stuff in the video, but it's one long through, and then he comes back later and talks about how he had to add the part about not having a strong male role model and not blaming his parents for his behavior. He's like, look, I could have gone back, remade this, and worked it into the original video, but then it would be less authentic. And like you said, I don't know if he is the greatest actor in the history of acting, but I don't think Tom Hanks could pull this off if he was acting. So I have to believe that what he's saying is real.
Runs in the family.
Is he still selling a product? Yes, he is absolutely selling Hanx Fit, which is, he advertises it as self-mastery. So what he's doing is very, I guess, what Tony Robbins, was that who that was in the... Who's the one who did all the motivational tapes back in the 90s?
Tony Robinson?
Was it Robinson?
There are a lot of them.
Tim Robbins is an actor.
I mean,
right?
there are like preachers too. Like Joel Osteen has plenty of self-help elements as well.
So he says, Hanx did warn that fame is a double-edged sword, and explains that fame is the most powerful drug known to man, asserting that it can almost be the most destructive, and that most people are infatuated with fame. And in this day and age, in the social media generation, I don't know if that's necessarily untrue, but I think that with most people looking for a way to monetize their, like, do you follow what NIL is, like name, image, likeness for athletes in college? Like it used to be that you couldn't monetize your career in college before you made it to the pros. Now, because of the power of social media, all of those athletes in college are now making money off of their name, their image, and their likeness.
I think the NCAA changed the rules so that you can now make money. I mean, some of the objection to that is like a lot of college athletes are already receiving significant scholarships.
Yeah.
So not only are they like already getting funded through the school, but they're now making money. It's like an advantage that kids who aren't athletic but are there for academics like wouldn't get. I will say that like while I think his analysis of his experience is interesting, it's definitely more nuanced than the headline gives it credit. Like, to be clear though, he is still seeking fame. He still wants to be famous.
He's saying that he's taking his own path, and the idea here is that he's not and he doesn't shy away from his parents or that stuff, but he says on good terms with them. But he says right here, says, seeking validation from fame and from others only amplifies your misery, Hanx added, elaborating that true validation can only come from within yourself, and clarifying that from his own experience, the concept of fame was even more complicated because on top of fame already being toxic, I wasn't deemed even famous. I was just the son of somebody famous. And he said that his dad, they took him to meet George W. Bush. And George Bush was like, what's it like being the son of a famous actor? And he's like, freaking, I don't know. Like,
but what's it like not being Chet Hanx?
Oh, see, I would argue
know.
Probably it's a similar question that like his daughters, like Jenna Bush, is she Jenna Hager Bush or whatever now? Jenna and Barbara got asked, like, what's it like to be the president's daughters? Like, I don't know. I was always my dad's daughter, and then he became the governor, and then, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think that's a very strange question to ask people. Just partially because, like, what are you supposed to be like? Well, compared to the time I was somebody else's son, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't think it allowed him really to reach his own identity, like coming of age, becoming a man.
Yeah,
and I thought it was like very, very authentic and vulnerable to say, like, he said, I felt like I had to make up for that so I could be a man. That's the truth. It's not just anger. It's shame, insecurity, and self-consciousness.
Yeah, he says he was ashamed of his upbringing because of how people perceived him.
Well, and also, like, his reaction to the way he's handled their upbringing is very different from his brother. He has a brother,
Colin Hanx,
who looks basically like Bill Hader, like, but also whichever.
He's an established actor in his own right.
And he, like, as far as I know, I mean, maybe he would do tons of public interviews, but like he's much more withdrawn. It seems like he's way more private. Like Chet Hanx is definitely much more of the like public. I want to tell you about my personal experience.
Colin Hanx looks like he got stuffed in lockers in junior high, and Chet Hanx looks like he stuffed Colin Hanx in lockers in junior high.
Which one is older?
Colin.
Is Colin older?
Colin's
okay,
older.
So Colin looks. He looks like the Jeffrey Aaron, the guy who was married to Christina Hendricks, the actor who was married to Christina Hendricks. But like just kind of dorky looking.
He looks like Bill Hader to me. Like
No.
if you put Bill Hader in a lineup with Tom Hanks and all of his sons, I think I'd be like, yeah, he's related to them.
And one of the things that bummed me out is I love bounding into comics as far as a website to find stuff to cover. And what I like is that, like, I was reading the comments and, like, I didn't agree with almost any of them. They're like, oh, woe is you.
I hate that.
Who never had to want for anything. Like, I don't like the argument that celebrities have no problems because they're rich. Are they vapid and stupid? Yes, most of them are. But that does not mean that they don't have their own problems. And substance abuse finds a way into the life of many people beyond just because you're poor.
I think we've been falsely led to believe that like affluence or like monetary benefit protects you from like negative experiences in your life, and it's actually just not true.
So, like this comment says, hard to feel sorry for someone blaming their problems on growing up rich and famous.
Like, did you even read the article?
They didn't even read. They
that
didn't even
wasn't
read
what
the
it
article.
was.
So it's and I thought it was interesting that he still has a relationship with his dad and his mom. So that's kind of like, but he's not like. You don't see them posing in photos. Like, I was looking for a photo of like all three of them together.
There has been one in quite some time.
And it was very old. He looked much younger at that time. So I just think this is a very interesting place to go from the guy who we were literally kind of memeing on. It was kind of a meme. The White Boy Summer stuff was kind of a meme that Dane is probably kicking himself right now.
Yeah, it was a meme, and it was something he very intentionally did.
Yes.
So
to gain fame, I
So-
will say.
yeah.
Or find his place in the world, and if that is
Thing is, like, everybody seeks attention. That's
Yeah.
just a human behavior, and you have to parse out like your reasons behind doing that. And I think that he's at least approaching a better outlook on it.
And the reason I wanted to cover this today, I was watching a video from a YouTuber named Dan Fan yesterday that I watch. She has a lot of comic reviews and talking about the concept of what negative content means. The kind of false narrative that you should just be positive because if you're just being positive, then you're not adding negativity to the world, but toxic positivity is actually a thing. But I was like, maybe we could do with covering something that's actually more positive once in a while. And when I saw this topic yesterday, first of all, I was annoyed that the article framed it poorly.
They
but
did?
felt like, well, yeah, because they framed it as if he was blaming his parents.
I think the
for-
headline is
just
a
the
little bit
headline
misleading.
was-
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
why they got those comments.
Yes, a lot of those people might not have even read
Yeah.
the article themselves, and I just thought maybe once in a while to try more often to cover something that actually I find positive or exciting. Not to say that I don't think that he's not selling a product; he's absolutely selling a product. But if it means that a dude acts like a human being and comes across like honest and vulnerable while he's on camera, and if it has to come from Chet Hanx of all people, then the world is getting stranger each and every day. It really is.
Yeah.
So there was some super.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, the one thing I had an issue with was when he said that you can only find true validation from within. I strongly disagree with that because you're just going to find, like, a bottomless pit of, like, self-criticism or, like, then blind praise of yourself. You can't evaluate yourself as accurately as other people, and you're going to find true validation from, like, having relationships with other people, not self-discovery. I think that's kind of a lie that is propagated by a lot of celebrities, like self-love.
I've come to realize, like, as somebody who's more of like an introvert and is far more of a loner than most of the people in
Brett's
my
a
life.
loner. He's a loner, Mary.
I kind of used to fit that notion. Like before I worked here, I worked mostly alone, skated with my friends on the weekends, but during the week skated by myself. Didn't see people at all during the week.
He's
but,
a loner.
I don't know if that's the word for it.
No, I just teased you a
Introverted.
little bit.
Introverted. It's fine. But the idea here is that, like, yes, you're not going to be able to, because I used to kind of attach to that idea, and you're right. I think that you have to objectively let other people look at you objectively, and then parse out what you believe is honest and real critique, honest and real praise, and build from there in a way. And that we as humans are social creatures to begin with. So he might be a little bit off on that, but he's kind of teaching a one-on-one course if that's what he's doing with Hanx Fit.
He has great intentions.
Yeah,
He does.
I would say it's like a balance, right? Like you're never going to receive the type of, or the level, the amount of validation from the outside world that would actually make you feel secure in yourself. But on the other hand, like if you become totally self-absorbed, Mary's totally right. It becomes either a pit of despair because you're never good enough, or it becomes like kind of vapid narcissism where you're like, no, of course I'm great, and you excuse all your own flaws.
Yeah.
Like,
And a lot of celebrities oscillate between those two, and we watch that happen.
Yeah.
Like Ezra Miller.
I think part of it is just like when you live for fame, and so much of our day and age being famous is famous on social media. So it's tons and tons of people's opinions, and they're leveraging it at you, and you have like the number of likes, and you can really see when people like you, quote unquote, and when they don't. That becomes overwhelming. You'll never, ever, ever be happy chasing that. And so you need to have people in your life whose opinions and characters are like ones that you respect and value, because when they, give you positive feedback or whatever else, then it's meaningful. Then it builds up your life.
Yeah, I don't what somebody in my family says to me or people that I know in the real world means a whole lot more to me than the nice or negative things that people say to me online, I guess.
Are you telling that to your viewers who bully you?
That bully me, yes. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. It doesn't, I promise. There's some super chats.
Brett's brother is in the comments being like, I can hurt you.
Nerd!
No, his evil twin Branthony is in the chat.
That's very possible.
Dizwiz said shotgun, and Hannah screams, "Excuse me."
Excuse me?
I just realized that when he says shotgun, he means that he's like the first super chat.
Yep.
I didn't catch that before.
Oh, I thought it was like honorary whoever's sitting over there. Like I thought it came with some benefits, like you read all of their super chats first or something.
Oh, no.
Okay, cool.
It's just completely in his head. Jake Jones said, please talk Pokemon. New main series game leaks. When Dane is back.
Dane could definitely do that. As somebody who I brought my Game Boy Color with my red and blue here, but didn't play anything after that, so that's very possible. Dane
Jonathan Harris said, so Chet actually has some sort of personal responsibility. Love to see it.
In an age where like personal responsibility is not valued at all, and I truly do believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that our society has pushed far away from the notion that you're responsible for your own actions, and that God forbid anything that happens to you might actually be as a result of something you chose to do or an action you took in life. The idea that Chet Hanx is the one preaching a value that I find so unbelievably important is both hilarious and oddly wholesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I have not quite gotten on the Chet Hanks bandwagon like you guys have, but like, if he's the patron saint of for our generation of personal responsibility, like, maybe he'll win me over. You know, I respect a lot that he was able to say, like, I went like with this school or camp or whatever that he was at for a long time, being like, it was bad, but my parents didn't know that, and we're trying to do something good. Like, I respect people who are able to look at errors of people who cared for them or their parents or whatever and say, like, with the information they had at the time, they made the best decision they could.
And it sounds like the program saw his parents as huge cash cows.
Yeah.
So like, the more that they could convince his parents that he is not ready to go back home, the better.
He's
for their
keeping them
bottom line.
Yeah.
Everything today is like, instead of your parents just screwing up and doing something wrong that they didn't mean to do wrong, it's now generational trauma and they ruined your life. Yeah. And everything else is somebody else's
and
fault.
You don't go to Thanksgiving anymore. And
Yeah.
It's just like
I
breaking
think
up families.
part of becoming an adult is like realizing that your parents are human, and like, you know, this isn't true for everyone's parents. Some people's parents are terrible, but like for the majority of parents out there, like, they are inevitably taking this risk. They're going to have kids and know at some point they're going to do something wrong, and they can't do anything to prevent it because that's just human nature.
Yep.
Yeah. Javi J said, as official treehouse of White Boy Summer, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to issue the first violation of the summer to Hannah Claire.
What?
Sleeves are required except for Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't make the rules. I just have to enforce them.
Should you tell me to put my sweatshirt back on?
Indecent.
Look, I dressed for the job I want, which today is stay-at-home soccer mom, and I'm just going to manifest that into happening.
There you go.
Goofer Trooper said, my fellow crisis actors, today we simp for Brett.
Oh, well, perfect. That is, what better way to move on to the next segment than to know that people are indeed going to simp for me for
Brett
once.
is like, finally.
Yay, it's my time to shine.
It's like, yes, put the camera on me. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.